How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Ray. How are you?
I'm gonna make you. I'm gonna make you the
Can you
host.
hear me?
You can hear me?
You guys, that microphone on? I just sent it to you. Okay, while we are waiting for Ray, can you hear me? Okay. Is the speaker on? Is the speaker? He can hear me. Say something else, Ray. Yeah, there's no audio coming through. No speaker coming through. Yeah, he's speaking.
Check, check, check. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Check.
I can hear you on my laptop, but we have a speaker set up, and so we're trying to get the speaker. Oh, okay, yeah.
Be careful when you're setting up the speaker, you don't get a feedback.
Shamanga, can you hear me? I can't
I
hear
can hear
you
you.
now. Now we can't hear you, Shamanga.
Ray,
Yeah, you still having audio issues.
again?
You're coming in faintly. You're coming in faintly. You're coming in faintly. My microphone's working, I think.
It is.
How about for you, Tlaki? Can you hear me clearly?
No, not really. You sound far away.
Whatever they did, they changed the settings because you were fine 5 minutes ago. I hope your mother put the food away. Shamanga?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi there.
Hello.
It's feedback.
Yeah, give us a minute. We're sorting it out.
Sure. It sounds like you're there, but you've got feedback.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
We can.
All right, we'll go with that, tried and tested. I'm sorry about the technological delay. I learned a long time ago that if something can go wrong, it will. But I do appreciate you all for your patience and for joining us now. How are you, brothers?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Ray, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I don't want you guys to hear the background noise.
Okay, it's
Sure.
fine. Let's not waste too much time. Let me first introduce the people who are with us here. Rainer Roberts is the managing director for the academic partnership. I asked Rainer Roberts to join us for a couple of reasons. One, he's one of the sponsors for this event, or the main sponsor. He's located in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. The academic partnership is an education consultancy that provides education solutions for international schools all around the world. Very soon, Rainer is going to introduce to Africa I think we turned the speaker off.
You have to turn your speaker off.
Yeah, just turn the speaker off, please.
Yeah,
Yeah, just turn it
that's
off.
better.
Please. Okay, and so Rainer is going to introduce a teenage or a high school think tank. And we're going to solicit students from all over the continent of Africa to be a part of this think tank. It will be established to basically develop solutions for many of the challenges, or to get the team perspective on what could be some of the solutions for several of the challenges that we face throughout the continent. More of that will be, more information on that will be forthcoming. Continue to join us on the Pan-African. Let me introduce myself before introducing the man of the hour, Ben Mortwane. I am Smangaliso. I'm I'm just a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And people ask, how did you get into this work that you're doing with the Pan-Afcon? What does this have to do with preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ? Well, I take my mandate from the gospel of Luke, in which Jesus talked about bringing liberty to those who are in captivity. And as I started going around Africa in 2003, 2004, I realized that the old model of mission work is the incorrect model. It was one that does not empower people, but it creates dependency. And we know the history of the continent of Africa and how missionaries acted as operatives and mercenaries. What we call missionaries, European missionaries, acted as mercenaries and operatives. They are the ones who supplied the European colonizers with the maps and both the geographic landscape as well as the social landscape for the Europeans to come in and ultimately do what they have done in Africa. And so I realized that part of my mandate as a preacher of the gospel is to bring liberty to those in captivity and to empower people. And so I began to see that there was a wealth of resources that we have on the continent, and that it's best if we organize people. That would be true mission work, true carrying of the gospel to liberate people. And the best way to do that, I found, on the continent was to use what the continent has. All right. And in order, I found, for people to be completely liberated, there are three phases of liberation, or three aspects of liberation. There must be psychological liberation, economic liberation, and political liberation. And the three follow each other. There cannot be economic liberation if there is no psychological liberation, and there definitely cannot be political independence if you don't have economic independence. Let me give you an example. African people, we spend worldwide, and you can include everyone in the diaspora on the continent, worldwide, we spend over $85 billion annually on beauty care products. That includes all of the artificial hair that our women wear, the eyelashes, the makeup, the salves, everything that we're using, that we're importing, many of which are being made with products that come from the continent. We spend 85 billion US dollars yearly on these things. That's $85 billion when we have the challenges that we have with our healthcare system. That's $85 billion when we have the challenges that we have with our education system, and the list can go on. The reason why we spend more than any other group in the world on beauty care products is because of a psychological captivity that we face when it comes to our image of ourselves. And I'm not afraid to say what I say. I often say this. I say, if you go around the continent of Africa, you will find that every African man, whether he wants to acknowledge it or not every, but the overwhelming majority will tell you that the European woman looks better than his woman. That's just, that's psychological captivity. And until we change our standard of what is valuable psychologically, we can never liberate ourselves economically, because when other people set the standard for you of what is and what is not valuable, you are subservient to their economic rule. And once we are able to overcome these psychological issues, we can address economic liberation and political liberation. That notwithstanding, from a practical standpoint, we still have to live while we're getting our psychology together. We still have to take care of ourselves. And so from a practical standpoint, business must go on. And this is what facilitates the event today. The Mind Resource Private Investment Program is a program that undoubtedly empowers who own mines, who own land that is rich with resources, mineral resources, but need investment to extract those resources, exploit those resources, and benefit from those resources. This is why Ben Mortani, the managing director of Generic Climate Care, and Savant, a financial management group in the UK, have developed this program. And I don't think Ben to take it from here and go ahead. I like to call him Kalaki because he is the Sutu brother, and he can give you his history if he wants to, or he can get straight down to business, which I'm sure most people who have joined in are looking forward to. I'll let Ben take over from here and tell us all about the program, how it works, and the financing that is available, the ins and outs and the details of the program. And before the meeting is over, I will share with you the PDF that outlines the program, and then we'll talk about how we can get the process started.
Wonderful.
Ben, welcome.
Thank you. Spanga, thank you very much for the introduction. And you know, me, I like to get straight down to business. So excuse me, gentlemen, I would like to go straight into business and describe the program. The reasons for the program, I think Spanga already outlined that the reasons for the program. And the main features of the program really are to make sure that, as Spanga says, we can exploit the resources within the continent, and the financial or the derivative of those resources in the continent can stay in the continent. So what do we mean by that? We mean we can exploit the mining, but then what is derived from the mining does not need to be sold to get out of the continent. It can further be exploited within the continent, i.e. in order to get the final product. So let's look at a specific case in point as gold. So we'll be able to exploit the gold, keep the gold in the continent, and then further exploit the gold in itself after it has been assayed, has been smelted, has been made into bar form. So if we start with the PIP program, what we do is have structured a situation where we are able to monetize and for the lack of a better term, commercialize assets underground. These are assets which have not as yet been mined, but by virtue of knowing with geological reports and reports such as the JORC and evaluation of the resource underground, we're able to say, you know, from this particular amount of resources, we'll be able to derive X amount of money. From deriving this X amount of money, we'll be able to put into a program which will yield X amount of money on a monthly basis for, you know, for the next 12 months. And then we'll see after 12 months how we stand, and then we'll move it on. So to start at the beginning, again, to start from the beginning. So we have the program itself will look at all mining activities. So the easier mining activities are the activities within gold, diamond, or rather the precious metals, which is gold, platinum, copper, manganese, any of those precious and semi-precious metals. And then it will be in the mining of precious and semi-precious gems, i.e. diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and you know, and so on. So What's mainly required within the program are really the estimate evaluation of their mines. So whether they are virgin mines, as long as they've got the full reports, so we know that we can put an insurance wrap around it. And then with that insurance wrap, it protects the miner from any kind of losses or any political risk or financial institution going belly up or anything of the sort. So we'll put an insurance wrap around it from top insurance companies. So right now we use Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's of London, as you know, they are the top, or rather the blue chip standard of insurance globally. So we'll use Lloyd's of London to wrap the mine in insurance, and then we'll take that insurance and trade that insurance. So the bankers are from top banking institutions like your Merrill Lynch, like your Deutsche Banks, like your JP Morgans, HSBC, your Barclays Bank. So you're talking your top, let's say top 25 banks who are going to be trading. So what is the trade, which is the case in point? So there's two forms of trade. There's overnight trade and there's bank debt. So the overnight trade, what happens is that when a bank closes and the trades are counted at the end of the trading day, there will be losses, and those losses must be covered. If they're not covered, what will happen is that the International Monetary Fund and their local central banks will give them penalties. So that means they won't get the same extension of credit to buy further, instruments for the following day, for the following month, and so on and so forth. So they have to balance their books. So this is where we come in. We come in and say, look, we have monetized this particular asset. The bank will now go to their central bank and close off all of the trades for that day. So they do not go into negative equity, if you like. So for doing that, we the traders charge the bank a paltry amount, but it mounts up over time. So they'll charge the bank a 0.25% for that night. So you could imagine a 0.25% every day on a 5-day, 6-day trading week per month mounts up to quite a fair bit. So let's look at a mine, for example. Let's say a mine is worth $100 million. So now the insurers are not going to insure for, they'll insure the whole $100 million, but the traders will not give you a loan to value of that whole amount in case there's issues. So they have to have, breathing space, if you like, So therefore, they'll give a loan to value of roughly about 50%, 40 to 50%. So they'll take now that 50%, let's say, from that $100 million worth, and then they've got $50 million. With that $50 million, they will trade that $50 million every single night, for the month. And from that $50 million, they'll be charging commission to the bank or interest to the bank of a 0.25%. Now, again, it may not seem a lot, but 0.25% is quite a fair bit, as I said, for like a 28-day month. Now, what the banks do is that they don't only trade on that 0.25%, trade on that $50 million. Every bank leverages their funds. So on average, banks will leverage their funds 10 times. This is on average. So the $50 million that we have created for the bank of almost liquidity becomes $500 million to the bank. So now they're making a 0.25% of the $500 million. Now they do this for the whole 28 days of the month. And for those 28 days, we as a collective are getting a commission on those trades that they have made. Now, things that you have to keep in mind is that because there's an insurance for the asset owner, there can never be a loss to their assets because they are fully insured. And as I said, insured by the top insurance brokers. So that's the first thing. So let's say, for example, a similar situation happened, such as the subprime market when the banks fall apart. Because of the insurance in place, the asset owners will always know that their assets are protected. So even if a bank, let's say, I don't know, Merrill Lynch goes belly up because they did some bad trades and they have to cover, it doesn't matter because the asset owner is okay. So that's the one side of the trade where banks cover each other on their daily trades, or the traders and brokers within the banks themselves, they cover each other on a daily basis. There is also bank paper, so there's bank debt. So what would happen is that every day again, or every week again, you'll get bank debt. So multiple banks around the world issue things like bank guarantees, standby letters of credits, and other various banking debt instruments, bonds, and so on and so forth. Now, these bonds and debts are passed around from bank to bank. So before one bank buys any debt from another, one, they will buy it at a discount, and two, they've already got an outlet. So therefore, they're buying a debt which is already sold. So they're never what we'll call naked. Everything is always covered. So again, for the asset owner, it gives confidence that their assets are always protected in that respect. So the program itself is to run for 12 months with 12 months renewable every 12 months. The payments are done on a monthly basis. So, the end of every month on a Friday or whatever the end of that month will be, the payments will be ceded to the various parties. The banks themselves will be the paymaster, meaning that they'll pay the asset owner whatever is agreed. So let's say, for example, we have made an agreement with the asset owner that Mr. Asset Owner, you're going to get 60%, and the other 40% is going to the brokers and everybody else in the middle, or whatever the case may be. So Mr. Asset Owner will get theirs, and then everybody else will automatically get theirs at the same time. So this is not this will be done by the banks, automatically. Now, sometimes it may be a situation where the asset owner think maybe it's too much money for them to lose in terms of giving out 40% or even 50% in some cases. But what they have to understand and respect is that while the program is running, they can still be mining their asset. If they wish, they can still be selling their derived produce of their asset, i.e., they can be still selling their gold, still selling their diamonds or rubies, and so on and so forth. This is an added benefit for them, i.e., money comes in. It's almost, I know it's said quite often, it's almost like free money, because money is actually coming in while they're continuing their normal activities. Our advice, though, is this. If, for example, a mine owner is mining, normally, they would normally make something like 5% per annum of the value of their mine at best. This is at best. So a mine which is worth $1 billion in totality, i.e., the assets underground are worth $1 billion, the mine owner will make at best $50 million per annum, not per month. So what we would say is this program actually pays the mine owners to mine for free, effectively, plus more. So therefore they mine, and then they can vault the produce of the mining. So now every day as they mine, they getting the gold out, they're smelting it and vaulting it in bar form. So our advice would say, look, hold the gold for the year, and then at the end of the year, you'll come into the program again with your gold. So now you're getting a second income stream from the same similarly asset. At the end of the period, let's say, for example, it's 10 years time, the mine has got no more gold in the ground, but the asset owner has amassed, $1 billion worth of gold. It's in a vault, but along this period, as this is happening, they are getting money for the gold itself because they're not selling it, and then they're also getting money for the mine itself. They're not selling it, and then at the end of that period, they've amassed $1 billion worth of gold, which now they can sell, because it's theirs. At all times, all of this doesn't ever, ownership never passes to the bank or anybody else. It still belongs to the asset owners. So this is where, it works well with what Smanga was saying before about, money, resources within the continent, staying within the continent. So instead of now taking the gold and taking it to Europe or the Americas or wherever the case may be, in order for them to monetize and make more money, we do that in Africa and make more money within Africa itself. So now, go on.
Go ahead, Lucky. I'll let you finish. I'll reserve questions, or would
Sure.
you want questions to come in while you're talking? Or
While we're talking, it's fine. While we're talking, it's fine.
Okay. It sounds pretty amazing, actually, almost unbelievable. As African people, we have a great deal of trouble believing African people. So what would you say to those who say that, no, this is unreal? How can we mine, keep the material, and still make money? How, for those who may be at the itinerant level or artisanal level, how can you make that point in particular as plain as possible?
Okay, so essentially, the first few things which are really important is that the mine owners don't ever pay any money up front. So therefore, they never dip into their pocket for anything. The insurance will be paid for by the traders and the bankers. And these are paid and done all up front. So therefore, they will see stark, clarity that they are insured. They will see stark clarity how the contracts are between themselves and the traders or bankers. So there is nothing for them to pay. So to answer your question, how do you make it clear to them that it's not too good to be true? These are things which are done in Europe and the West, and they've been done in Europe and the West for a very long time. They've been done with property. They've been done with bullion, gold. They've been done with diamonds. The people like De Beers, Ashanti, Anglo-American, all of these big behemoths of companies who buy all of this gold, they're not selling all of this gold and diamonds. They only sell a small amount of it. De Beers, all of the diamonds that they mine everywhere around the world, they will sell a fraction of the diamonds and they vault the rest. Anglo-American, all of these companies, they buy a whole host of products. Mine a whole host of products, but then they only sell a fraction of what they mine. The rest they monetize in a similar fashion or by other means, such as credit enhancement. For example, if you're a company and you want to strike out in something, but you haven't got enough financial muscle, they will lend you their gold. By lending their gold, they'll charge you a fee for it. So therefore, on your books, your company looks as though you are worth X amount of money because that's, gold on your books. So therefore, banks can now lend you money. Other people can give you credit in order for you to do specific things with that investment. This is what they do.
Lucky, with that then, can we get into some of the mechanics of the program? How does it work? You've given us a general understanding of how it works, but in terms of specifics, what would the mine owner need? What would they need to do? What
Okay.
would you all do in terms of Genera and Savant? Can you start to talk about some of those
Sure.
details? How does it
Sure.
work?
Sure. So each mine must have full documentation. So it must have full ownership. It can't be, it's sad to say, but a lot of the people in Africa, in the continent, there's a lot of shysters and fraudsters who manufacture, because of corruption and the level of poverty in a lot of places, they manufacture paperwork. So we have to have proper documentation in terms of ownership documentation. If some certain people have got gold which are vaulting, we'll have safekeeping receipts. If they are, of course, mine owners, they will have resource estimates. They must have resource estimates because in order for the insurance company to insure, something, they have to know what value to insure it for. So a resource estimate, Smanga, I think you remember when you went to Lesotho at one stage to meet SRK. The exercise on that was for SRK to do an exploration and a resource estimate of specific mine. With that resource estimate, it will say, okay, we've found X amount of, or indicatively X amount of diamonds here, which are able to be got over a period of time. So therefore, the value of that mine is X. So this is required. It's really important because it has to be covered with insurance in order for that insurance to be traded. The mines have to come fully documented. So that's what I mean, ownership, the licensing, the resource estimate values. It has to have the competent person's report, the geological reports, if I haven't said those already. The normal things like impact assessments, which are normally, part and parcel of any mine, and then they'll get a client information sheet. I think it is normal nowadays to have client information sheets or KYC documents, which identify the clients, their passports, and all of those kind of things to make sure that you are not dealing with any nefarious people. You're dealing with real people. They're not ghosts, they're not made up, they're not fictitious, and you can actually see these are the real people. And then within the document that we'll send, after we get, to understand what the mine owner has, there will be a letter of intent, letter of non-solicitation, and then the history of assets, because you'll find that there is certain mines that have passed hands over the last couple of 100 years between so many people. So we'll have to know that, look, before, ex parte bought the mine or received the mine, however they received it, it belonged to another party, and these are the transfer documents from one party to other. So therefore, there's that line of sight in all cases. And then after we've got all the documentation, what we do, we then deliver all of the documentation to the banks and the trade platform. So what the trade platform and the banks will do is run their own due diligence. We will run a preliminary due diligence, make sure that everything all makes sense, everything is all real through the embassies, through the people like Interpol and people like that. So there's no criminal elements who are masquerading, because we're talking about the gold impact, where you'll get a lot of people who would invest in gold in order to hide illicit funds for terrorism, for multiple things. So therefore, we'll hand these things to those particular agencies. The agencies will come back with reports. We take all of these reports and deliver them to the bankers and the traders. Then the traders will do their own internal financial due diligence. And then once they are satisfied with their financial due diligence, they will send out a contract for the mine owner to complete. As I said,
one quick question. You have mentioned gold and precious metals several times, but is the process the same for other materials like, and do you deal with other materials like, say, in Ghana, for example, or Guinea, there someone has bauxite, or someone has tungsten, or someone has
Yes,
coltan in Eastern Congo or
of
something like that.
course.
Do you deal with other minerals?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just because, yes, other minerals as well. It's just because, the gold and the diamonds are normally one, a safe haven of investment vehicles, let me say, and also they are they're the most liquid minerals. But the other minerals, as long as they have the valuation, yes, we deal with those minerals as well. This is why,
So
if you remember earlier, I spoke of copper as well.
okay.
Yeah,
So the process, what I'm asking, the process is the same, no
it's the
matter
same.
what type. Okay, all right, all
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely,
Continue.
absolutely. So once the trade platforms and the banks are happy, they will send out an agreement. So they will send out two agreements. One will be a participation agreement, because everybody who is involved has to be identified. So I don't mean essentially normally just the individuals, but also the companies or individuals and all companies they represent. They have to be identified because they will be getting paid directly uh, by the bankers. They're not getting paid by us or any other second parties or any of that kind of nature. So this is also safer, I would imagine, for all parties concerned to know that upon each drawdown of each month, when monies are transferred, their monies are also transferred from source. So it doesn't allow for uh, any sticky fingers
Right.
from others. Yeah.
Is there an administrator uh, or someone of that capacity from your side that has to be involved in terms of the financing and the dispersing of funds? Is there a financial administrator? How do
Well,
you,
okay, sure. Savant looks after the financial structure in terms of submitting the financial structure, but that's only because the participation agreement will detail which entity is getting what and their banking details and so on and so forth.
well, my
Yeah.
question is how on the African side do you
Mhm.
monitor what's happening with the funds that have been dispersed for
It's
these projects?
it's not for us to do that. They're not our funds after that.
How do you then safeguard against squandering the investment?
There's not much we can do. It's not our funds. We can't do that. We can't. There's not much we can do as long as the entities they have to sign within the contracts what they are going to do with the funds and so on and so forth. The only thing that may happen is that the banks themselves or the platforms themselves they may you know uh, I'd imagine if they find that the money is being squandered, i.e., instead of the mining carrying on, if they were supposed to carry on. No, but Smanga, the thing is that it doesn't. It's not our money, so it's not up to us if they squander it or not. Yeah, because if let's say, for example, you've got a mine, you've got all the documentation, but you decide that you don't want to mine it, right? You can carry on not mining. You can sit on your mine, build your house on your mine, carry on not mining as long as that resource is still there. Because the essence of it is about the valuation of the resource underground as opposed to what you are doing with it. So if you decide to mine, you decide not to mine, it's fine. It's up to you.
So just so I can be clear and anyone else, this program is designed in such that it is the value of the resource in the ground that makes the money, and it doesn't have to be extracted.
It doesn't. No.
just wanted to be clear on that. So
Yes,
it is
it doesn't
almost
have to
like,
be extracted, but you see, our advice is that it is best to extract it because after 12 months of vaulting the resource, you're going to get a secondary income from the vaulted resource. So now, let's say, for example, you've been taking out 100 kilos a month. So after 12 months, you've got 1.2 tons. So now you put that 1.2 tons into the program. So now you're going to be getting whatever the finances are based on that 1.2 tons, while you're still getting the finances from the resource, the mine itself.
I understand. So in essence, the program makes that mineral in the ground tantamount to money in the bank.
Yes.
Remarkable. It is still a challenge, but the more you talk in terms of understanding it and clearly being in belief, the more you talk about it, becomes a bit more clearer for me. So
Sure.
ultimately, the program is to enable people to benefit from, okay, take for instance, we often hear that the mineral wealth of the Democratic Republic of the Congo is worth 3 times the entire GDP of all of Western Europe.
Yeah.
But they're not benefiting from it.
Absolutely.
So what you have done is developed a way for, on the private level, the artisanal level, someone can benefit from that resource.
Yes.
Just by a bank trading off of that resource that's in the ground.
Yes.
And they don't have to necessarily extract it.
Absolutely.
Lucky, I want to open it up for any questions of the participants that may be circulating right now in their minds. We got about just under 15 minutes left. Is there anything else you wanted to say quickly before we started taking questions from our guests here?
Not really. As long as I said, the mines are fully documented. Because you've said a couple of things. You talked about artisans, and you'd find in the main the artisans don't have documentation a lot, because essentially they may have just a license to mine, and they're literally a gang of friends or associates who will be digging a specific area, but they don't have formalized documentation in place. That becomes a challenge because obviously there won't be any resource valuation estimates. That's the only challenge.
I understand. Well, that's where consultancies like ours, the Pan-Afcon, and others would come into place in helping people get their documentation in order. And having mentioned that, Shell mentioned for everyone listening that you have identified or have solicited the Pan-Afcon to be the initial screening agent in terms of receiving the documentation, making sure that what you are asking for is actually presented in the portfolio before it is sent over to Genera and Savant.
Indeed.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We have a number of very welcome, high-profile people here. We have Mr. and Mrs. Victor Luo here from Kenya. They're all the way here in Zambia. We have Sister Tarai and Dr. Ayan here present with us. All of them are in one way or another striving for the development of the continent of Africa and the betterment of our people. I want to ask them if they have any questions. They would like to ask anything in particular. Is there anything that seems convoluted or you would like to get clarity on? No, you can't hear you. The microphone is off there. I'll repeat the question. One second.
Sure.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. I can, yes.
All right, this is Victor Luo. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. I've got a couple of questions. I think one question, and I think two questions, actually. There is a situation where there's a man who owns a land, and that land, there's a lot, they've discovered manganese, lots of manganese there. He owns it, so he approached us to say he wants to make sure he gets rid of all the illegal miners who are trying to extract that manganese from there. He owns the land. He said, if we make some kind of a joint venture with him, you know, you'll be able to allow us to mine and then share the profit with him as well. Is that something that if we had that joint venture with him or a partnership with the owner of the land where the manganese is that something that you can help fund? Mind you, there is no history. This is completely, you know, it's never been, it's virgin land. It's never been mined before. It's a new discovery.
It wouldn't be. This is a little bit outside our scope. Reason being that what we are doing at the moment is making sure that we can wrap insurance and monetize that insurance against the resource estimate that has been evaluated from the ground. What you're saying at the moment is the exploratory level where, you know, this resource estimate has not been done. And as such, it is very difficult to fund, you know, in inverted commas, what we don't know at the moment. I understand the direction that you're going. I'll tell you what we have done to date, but again, this is a little bit different. There's a mine in DRC. The mine as a whole is worth the resource estimate is at $1.28 billion. They are looking to sell the mine for $100 million. But they had a last resource estimate when it was owned by one French company, and the French company, you know, left DRC in 2014. So between 2014 and now, they haven't had any, they say they haven't done any mining. We know that there's illegal miners in wherever there's resources. So therefore, as a consequence, they haven't done any new resource estimate. So what we had said to them is that since you haven't done any new resource estimate, we'll buy the mine off you. We will pay for the resource estimate to be done, but we won't pay you any money upon completion of the purchase contract. We will only pay you when we have finished the work with the resource estimate. We envisage that will take 30 to 45 days, but we will only be able to tell you directly once a company like SRK has done the evaluation. Once they tell us how long it will take, this will be when you'll get paid. You'll get paid at the end of that period. So what we have done is that we have effectively bought a mine. We are at the end of exchanging contracts. After the contracts are all done and dusted and everything is clear that the mine belongs to us, but we have 45 days in which to pay the $100 million. But failing the payment of the $100 million, the mine will go back to their owners automatically. So this allows us now to go to our bankers and the like to say, look, here is our mine. This is our profile as they know us. And as a consequence, we would like money to fund for exploration or whatever the case is. Our banks are able now to give us the funds for exploration, to give us the funds for resource estimate. And then at the end of that period, we'll be able to give the persons that money, you know, that we have agreed. So the reason I've gone this long, convoluted way is that it could be a situation where it depends. Does this person want to sell? Does this person want to be a miner? And what is their end goal? Because if they want to sell, then we can structure something of a similar nature. If they want to be JV, as you said, then we can also look into being JV with them, but being senior in that JV. So therefore, we can use our company as the company that is bank facing. But this particular situation is new. What you're suggesting is new. So I can't say at the moment, outrightly, yes, this is something that we can think about and think about how do we implement. But I am sure it can be implemented, but it's just about looking at the structures in place and thinking, how do we implement this?
Okay. All right, that sounds good. I mean, see what you can do. And then there can always be that virtual meeting with the owner of the land as well. But remember, nothing has ever done, this man has never done any mining at all. It's just been discovered within its land, and the government is aware of it, but he owns the land. So,
okay.
So
tell me, when the manganese was discovered in the land, how do you know? Because obviously there's nothing being done. There's no drill data. There's nothing at all. There's, as you say, virgin land. So therefore, how does he know categorically that there is a worth resource? Because sometimes you can get maybe he's at the tail end of a seam. I don't know. So how does he know in his particular land there's a bankable resource within that particular place if he hasn't done any kind of preliminary exploration?
Well, this is the challenge. It's hard. This is the challenge that he's facing. As I say, it's not a miner, but there are Chinese that have gone there. Before, but because of he's denied them access, deals and stuff, he refused. As of now, they.
Sorry, you weren't quite there.
Illegal miners, tracks and of how much there is. There has been a huge interest from the Chinese over his land, but he's been very, very sort of unsure about dealing with them.
Okay.
No, you could ask. Yeah.
Can I ask before the lady there asks the question? You said that there is illegal miners which you want to kick out. I would imagine from that means the illegal miners are actually they're getting some produce, because otherwise they wouldn't return there.
Yes, they are.
Okay, can I ask? I mean, it's an unconventional ask, an unorthodox ask maybe, but it's just a thought. Is there therefore possible for this chap, knowing the illegal miners are there and knowing who the illegal miners are, because in Africa you do know, which village they're coming from in the main, or which town they're coming from, when they're coming, and so on and so forth. Is it therefore possible at this stage, or if it's impossible, then it's impossible, just for me to ask, for me to understand, is it therefore possible at this stage to see if he can come into some kind of arrangement with those illegal miners? I'll tell you the reason I'm asking this is because the illegal miners may be able to prove a specific resource, tangible resource, as opposed to an ethereal resource. So therefore, by them illegally mining and deriving a product from that, he may take samples of the derived product, knowing where it has come from, and actually map them. Most people nowadays with your your phones, you're able to map and drop a pin exactly where you are and say what you got there and how far the depths are. You know, I don't know if that's possible, but if it is possible, something of that nature, or even engage a geologist who can speak to some of those illegal miners to see exactly where they're digging to, so therefore we can get some numbers, something indicative, because on the back of that, we may be able to, I don't know, we might be able to find a structure. I mean, I'm talking loosely at the moment because I'm just thinking as you're talking. I don't know what is concrete right now, you know, but it's something that is worth thinking about.
Okay. In terms of even getting some kind of samples, even getting them tested, we can do it under our company. There's no problem. We can also go there. We've got this given us authority to go in and extract. And I think we are also looking at the possibility of having a geologist there as well. So those are the things that we can help with. So what we wanted to find out, if we had done that homework, you know, having, you know, to have the samples tested properly and not have a geologist there, would you be in a position to now assist from a financial perspective?
Yes, I mean, in that respect, then we would have to understand what is the end goal. What I mean by that is the end goal to sell the resource? One, is it to mine the resource and become a miner? What is the end goal? So if the end goal is to sell the resource, i.e. sell the mine, then we could assist as ourselves. It's in the example I've given. If it's for funding in terms of for you to become a miner, then again, I think it may be possible for us to assist, but we would have to be a JV because this will mean we're going to put our resources up front while we're doing the exploration and the resource estimate. I'm sure you know that to do the resource estimates and exploration in formalized manner, it costs quite a bit, right? So we would foot those costs, but then we would need to know that we're in a JV structure ourselves, that we can't put money in and then have the situation where an entity can renege on a contract or a situation that we've put in place. We have to be secure, like they have to be secure.
Lucky,
Of course, yeah.
much appreciated in terms of responding to that question. We have to be mindful of the time, so I wanted to, that was Mr. Victor Lowell asking you those questions. I want to quickly go to Dr. Ayan. She has a question for you.
Sure.
And we'll see if there may be one question after that, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Sure.
Hello there, I'm Dr. Ayan. How are you guys doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'll keep this brief. Just to give you a bit of my background, I'm a consultant that represents African Minerals Group as well as Invictus Development Africa. And Victor and Annette, with their Pinch Metals mining business, have also recently became joint venture partners with African Mining Group as well as Invictus Development Africa. And I'll send information to the brother here, and he can forward that to you so you can know more about them. But what Victor was talking about regarding this available land, I recently spoke with Hamza, and they have technology now called GIS technology, and GIS technology in mining. So they're able to use technology and see actually not only what's there, but how much of that mineral is there, how far deep, how far wide. So this technology is available. And this brother, the CEO of both these companies, is in Nairobi. He's from Kenya. He's he grew up in England where you are, but decided to move back home. He's a lawyer by trade, and decided to get into these various businesses. So mining is one aspect that he's doing, and he's partnering up with serious Africans who have mining businesses like you are in the continent. And but his focus is also in another area, urban development, waste management, waste to energy, things like that. So he's doing various things. But this GIS technology is available. And I'm hoping that you all can also link up with Hamza, and perhaps I can set up a Zoom call between you Brother Sangaliso here, and
Sure.
see how we can partner up in that
Sure,
aspect.
sure.
The
Sure. I mean, the
technology,
GSI technology is like the electromagnetic resonance, isn't it? So therefore, it resonates with whatever is underground, whatever the
right, and it's
magnetic
the new
resonance
way
of
of
it is.
mining.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
instead of aimlessly just digging out of
Yeah.
assumption, when you find something here, it's probably just maybe a few ounces of it, and people think it's a lot there, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
there could be a lot more than people think.
Of course.
This, I think, will propel the mining industry in a very big way for African
Yeah.
miners and
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
involved in this industry. So that's the
Yeah.
input I.
Okay, great. No.
Even with that technology, because I've worked for a mining company for over 15 years in Australia, Sandvik Mining Company. It's also in Zambia as well and Africa-wide as well. So I understand these things very well. What we do, even if there is that available technology, we still do the drilling as well, you know, and
Of
that
course.
we get the physical samples and still take them to the lab. And that's just a confirmation for what you're looking for as well,
Yeah.
in terms of testing and stuff like that. But it's a confirmation for the lab.
Sure.
Thank you.
Of course, the what technologies can be very useful to the drilling as well.
Thank you so much. This is a conversation
Of another
that
time. Yeah.
undoubtedly is a never-ending conversation due to the fact that we're not only dealing with our present circumstances, but we're also trying to prepare things for future generations. We're actually over time now, about 6 minutes. Kalaki, if you can, give us a 30-second wrap-up in terms of the main points of the program. And if in your wrap-up, if you could include some numbers in terms of how much funding could someone possibly receive, and is there a minimum amount value that a mine must have in order for a person to qualify for this program?
Sure. Sure. So really to wrap up, the person normally it's $250 million worth of resource. This is not to say $250 million worth of the mine, but the resource underground. Really, that's 250 million, but we can push them to maybe $100 million. But the rule of thumb is $250 million because of the, for the loan to value situation. And in terms of that loan to value, the norm is that, it's dependent on the mineral. But if we look at gold, for example, you'll get a 50% loan to value on average. So $100 million mine, resource will yield a $50 million.
Ben, your mic is muted.
Will yield a $50 million LTV. And from that $50 million LTV, the mine owner will get 70% of that, and then the other 30% will go to the various parties, i.e., the brokers and so on and so forth. The brokers and so on and so forth, and then the program itself will take the other 50% of the LTV. But I will send it onto the document itself, so therefore you've got everything to lean to.
Very good. Well, Kalaki, we certainly thank you. We appreciate your time. We're going to obviously have to arrange another meeting, another session, where we can go further into detail with this. I'll take it from here on the ground and we'll disseminate information in terms of where people can start the application process with us, in terms of us making sure that the documents are in order and making sure that the documents are legitimate documents before they even get to you. And I think that this is a win-win situation for us all.
Absolutely.
Mr. Raynor Roberts, we want to thank you. We got to take some time to show appreciation. I heard a preacher say a long time ago that thank you makes room to receive more. I want to thank the owner of this restaurant that we are in today, Dish Menu Restaurant, Sister Chulu Sinkala. It's a brand new restaurant. If you are ever in the Lusaka, Zambia area, be sure to come here. You'll experience some of the finest cuisine.
Fantastic.
And
Send me the
we want,
details. We have people there, so we can push them to the area,
for
of
sure.
course.
That's
Yes.
also for everybody watching us on Facebook Live at this time as well.
Okay.
Mr. Raynor Roberts, Managing Director of the Academic Partnership. Without him, this meeting would not have been possible, the Zoom aspect especially. He has been a very wonderful supporter of everything that I've tried to do over the years. He's a good friend and brother, and he's a pretty intelligent businessman himself. He's a former mine owner. He was mining gold in Zimbabwe when I was just trying to find out what gold was. Mr. Raynor Roberts, in the last 30 seconds, can you give us a quick bit of detail about the African High School or International High School Student Think Tank?
Sure, I'll try to do it in less than 30 seconds here. So basically, we're running a, not just for high school, but for all K-12 learners, including elementary school learners, to promote critical thinking and problem solving for the challenges of the second half of the 21st century. We realize that it is the youth that will be the leaders that have to deal with problems that we could never have conceived. So we, in this project, want to get children, young people, young learners all around the world, internationally engaged to start collaboratively talking about how to solve these problems with the guidance of adults and educators. So this is a free effort. You can find more about this in the upcoming weeks as we release an announcement in various sources. So I'm pretty sure, Shamunga, you will help me in that regard. Again, thank you to all. And thank you, Mr. Ben, for giving a very insightful presentation. And hopefully we can get some investors on the African American end, a part of that 1.5 trillion, is it, Shamunga? 1.5 trillion dollars that's lurking around in the United States to start engaging Africa effectively. Thank you all. I wish you all the best.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you
Raynor.
again.
As again, I can't thank you enough for making this thing possible. Enjoy a wonderful this afternoon on account of your sponsorship, and you are greatly appreciated. I hope it's not too hot for you there in the desert in Riyadh. Dr. Ayan Finley is from your neck of the woods, or spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C., so I think that you and her would have a lot to talk about later on.
Sounds good.
One quick thing about the think tank, and we appreciate you as well. The Academic Partnership has also identified the Pan-AFCON to be its resource for galvanizing or networking the targeted international schools throughout the continent to find the students that will be a part of that African think tank. And so we will be working on that. Pan-AFCON is a diverse consultancy, and we pride ourselves in dealing with all walks of the spectrum, whether it's a small brand new restaurant just opening, as long as it is Black owned, African owned, serving Black owned African cuisine, we can help it. And it could be something as big as the financial institutions that Genera has put together for the Mine Resource Private Investment Program. We can still work with them as long as they intend on dealing with Africa in a mutually beneficial way. For all of those who have joined us live via Facebook Live, we definitely appreciate you. For those that popped in the Zoom meeting and popped out, we definitely appreciate you for coming as well. For all other information about the Pan-AFCON, about Genera and the private investment program, for information about the academic partnership, and a whole host of other things that may interest you, visit us at www.thepenpine.org for more information. Contact us and we certainly respond to you. Thanks all for attending. Until we meet again.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sorry.
Bye.